How do I feel? It's like welcoming back an old friend that I haven't seen in years.
This guy's name is Michael Shaw, and the old friend he's referring to is a pair of old shoes. More specifically, these famous ruby red slippers from the Wizard of Oz film, in which, spoiler alert in case you haven't seen this movie from almost 100 years ago, these things play a major plot point. These things are one of 4 surviving pairs from the production of that movie. The Smithsonian's National Museum of American History has got another one, but this particular set of old shoes that Michael is getting all worked up over here has had quite the journey as of late. And not just because they're shoes.
They're in very good shape.
Michael is a former child actor who went on to travel around the world with a bunch of old Hollywood memorabilia that he collected, and these slippers were the star of the show.
Because the shoes for 35 years were such an important part of my life. I took them as part of a traveling show I had called Michael Shaw's Hollywood on Tour. When people would look at those ruby slippers, it was like they became 12 years old again.
Back in 2005, he lent them to the Judy Garland Museum at her childhood home in Grand Rapids, Minnesota for a 10-week visit, only for someone to have snuck in and stolen the things while they were in the museum's possession, an event that had quite the effect on the Judy Garland Museum, given their executive director told the Washington Post nobody was going to loan their Judy Garland memorabilia to us anymore. Yeah. Makes sense. I mean, I suppose they could try getting some Tom Brady memorabilia from that guy we told you about earlier this year on your news refresh. Please subscribe. The stuff this collector paid a fortune for, but because of Tom's sloppy signature, it can't be authenticated and has ruined the merch. But this is the Judy Garland Museum, and I'm sure Oz fans aren't that interested in poorly autographed football shoes. In fact, speaking of us, hello, you may remember that we've told you about these shoes before on your daily news refresh. Because you see this man right here, the one hooked up to an oxygen tank being wheeled into a courthouse which has an entrance that isn't exactly wheelchair friendly. His name is Terry John Martin, and he's the guy who stole these shoes back in 2005. And the FBI ended up getting involved in this case because these shoes had been insured for $1 million and had an appraised value of more than $3.5 million. Geez, who knows how much that sex Bible from American Pie will be worth in 2084. Stay tuned to find out. Anyway, these slippers were missing for years, but the FBI was actually able to get them back in 2018 after someone tried to claim this insurance reward on them. And it turns out that Terry here is an old mobster who spent time in the clink. And according to the Associated Press, an old mob associate convinced Terry these things were worth $1 million because they were covered in real jewels. They're not. They're covered in glass beads and sequins. But Terry went ahead and stole them anyway, as part of what was described in a court memo, one last score. That's about as mobster as it gets, but Terry's a reformed mobster now. And last year he pleaded guilty to 1 count of theft of major artwork, an object of cultural heritage from the care, custody, or control of a museum. That makes sense now, but keep in mind that Terry claims he didn't know these were culturally significant shoes when he stole them, because he had never seen the movie. Yeah, he had never seen The Wizard of Oz. Don't take him to Wicked because he might not get the references. Anyway, Terry was sentenced in January to a year of supervised release. And in February, the slippers were returned to Michael in a private little ceremony. Here's a special agent with the FBI.
You would want to formally return your shoes to you. And we thought it was fitting that we do it here in the museum where they were stolen. I know you were supposed to be back here 18 years ago to bring these home, and I'm sorry that there was such a delay, but I'm happy that they're back.
But thanks to you, they're back.
We're blessed and pleased as punch to be handling this. I mean, to be involved with something like this and to reunite Michael with the slippers, and then, you know, basically giving the slippers their exhibition, what is due, and putting a nice closure with a nice little bow to what's been a nightmare for Michael for the last 19 years.
That guy's with Heritage Auctions, the company that's going to be selling these slippers in December.
I cannot thank Brian and Joe from the Heritage Auction Company enough for their assistance, unending help in bringing me to this point, and to bring the shoes here so that eventually the shoes will be back to all of you.
Yeah, that's right. After being apart from his prized shoes since 2005, he's putting them on the market, but not before they embark on an international tour of cities, including Los Angeles, New York, London, and Tokyo, where people of all ages, shapes, and sizes can have their own opportunity to look at 2 shoes.
The plan is, these shoes will be sold at public auction through Heritage Auctions later this year, as you know. But it's going to be after a multi-city exhibition. So you are going to still be able to share these with the public, in a widespread, field. So it's your dream is still alive, and this is what a nice way to put this little nightmare of yours for the last 19 years to a close, right?
Just to have them back where I can see them and touch them will be wonderful.
Now, assuming that nothing goes wrong on this tour and they put an air tag in their luggage or something, when the shoes go up for auction in December, the Judy Garland Museum would very much like to take them into their permanent possession. Yes, the very place they were stolen from wants to give it another go. And the museum is really focused on this footwear. They're even offering up a ruby slipper theft guided tour these days. And back in May, the state's governor signed into law a legacy finance bill, which carved out a $100,000 grant to facilitate negotiations for the purchase by the state of the Wizard of Oz ruby slippers. With Minnesota's governor writing on Twitter, "We're buying Judy Garland's damn slippers to make sure they remain safe at home in Grand Rapids. On display for all to enjoy under 24/7 Ocean's 11 proof security." Let's hope that's the case, given a second person was charged back in March in connection with that 2005 shoe robbery by a different old man who threatened to release a sex tape about a woman who knew about the stolen shoes and threatened to take her down with him. Nice guy. Last week at Grand Rapids Judy Garland Festival, the museum solicited donations to try to get some more money to help buy these slippers. As the New York Times illustrates, this auction house has not set a price, and their VP told local news they could sell for $1 million. They could sell for $10 million. They're priceless, in spite of the prices he just laid out. We won't know until December what these things end up selling for and ultimately where these shoes will cool their heels for years to come. But what we do know is that if you subscribe to The News Refresh on YouTube, you'll get more weird and interesting news stories like these each and every day. After all, there's no place like home. The YouTube homepage, where you get all your recommendations.